doing marriages, but one of the big things that I do is there's couples who are in extreme states of marital crisis, and they'll show up with divorce papers pending, and they will spend a week with me, anywhere from 2 to 6 days, 8 hours a day. Can you imagine how much fun that would be?
Gosh.
You know, all day, 6 hours. You just had like 2 or 3. Yeah, for a whole week, and we try and rescue their relationship. And to even make it more exciting, we usually do it with 4 or 5 other couples in the same room at the same time. So we all get to fight and argue and cry together. The thing that's really amazing about that is most people think that would be so uncomfortable. It's hard to get people to sign up for those. But when you have experienced one, you experience something besides therapy, which is you experience what the body of Christ is supposed to be like. People who sit with you in your authentic crap, and they care about you, they cry with you, they go, you're not crazy, you sound just like me. And you walk away with heart friends that are connected with you in this very personal time of your life. So I do that as well. And then just for frosting on the cupcake, I spend most of my days sitting and talking with people about sexuality. I teach on it, I do workshops, and I just have fun with all those naked topics.
Yeah. So she has all these kind of licensures and that stuff like that around. I guess there's all sorts of certificates that you have to be able to talk about this professionally.
Yeah, you do actually.
Lots of letters after her name. My question is going to be, because obviously there's so many different issues and to deal with relationships in our American culture. Why sex? You know, why is this such an important topic?
Well, it's my favorite topic, so I just get to do what I want, right? Because I'm Jesus's favorite. But, you know, as a therapist, I didn't start out thinking I'm just going to go be a sex therapist. I started out in ministry. My husband and I were life group leaders for young marrieds. And I was really starting to see that sexuality had a greater impact just than the obvious that you'd think it would have in the bedroom, you know, some sort of marital snafu. It ended up just permeating through everything.
So it's all, what you're saying is all kind of like connected in some way.
It really surprised me how much it was connected, and the difficulties didn't end up being just sexual. They ended up being about the person and about their heart and about their beliefs and about their wounds and about their experiences. And I started realizing that this just incorporated through the entire being, even their spirit.
And you used the metaphor with our workshops about the coal mine, right?
Yeah. Do you guys remember in your History 101 class in high school, do you remember when they would do mining? They'd do gold mining, and they'd leave that tunnel for the evening or whatever. They'd come back the next day, and the first thing they'd do is they'd send a canary down in a cage. You guys remember why they do that? Because if there was toxic fumes down in the mine shaft, it would kill the canary, and they could hear whether the canary was singing or not. And what I really started to realize, we make sex this big, huge, overarching deal, but really sex is just the canary of a marriage. And if it ain't singing, there's toxic gas somewhere.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's a great metaphor, isn't it? Yeah. So why don't we put up that text poll? Just want to get you guys engaged. Has your family ever been deeply impacted by sexual misconduct? I know, heavy question, but you're anonymously just putting in an answer, and let's just want to get a kind of a feel in here of kind of like what's the makeup of our faith community at this point. So as you guys are sending in, Cindy, because you work with so much sexual brokenness, that obviously you see a lot more, and when you see a lot more, it probably makes you more sensitive to it.
Yeah.
And, how does that impact your role as a mom? You have 2 sons, and I'm sure you're concerned for them all the time. How does that impact the way you talk to them?
That's a really awesome question. When I first started, I was concerned about that because you're aware of trouble, distress, and disaster sexually on every side. And the Lord helped me, because he challenged me to understand the difference between genuine and counterfeit. And if I was going to learn how to see genuine, I couldn't focus on all the problems. Every single person is just this unique cocktail of who they are, what they've experienced, what they believe, what's happened to them, what hasn't happened to them, and to try and pull all that apart would just make us all crazy.
Sure.
So I realized that's like trying to discover counterfeit bills by studying all different kinds of counterfeiting.
Sure.
And there's going to be a different kind of paper and a different kind of ink tomorrow. So instead, if I would just live with the genuine, if I would just live with the genuine $100 bill, live with it, sleep with it, eat, study, taste it, sniff it, memorize it, that all you'd have to do is hand me a counterfeit and I could just tell, oh, wrong kind of paper.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have to worry about any other topic or aspect. I could go, the ink doesn't taste right. And I wouldn't have to follow on those paths. So with my sons, I was really thankful that I discovered this when they were really little, because it helped me be able to incorporate the genuine in a real easy way through their upbringing, through just moments that we could talk about things, through those situations where my son was in middle school and he comes home and he goes, Mom, there are some boys in the locker and they had a Playboy, and we had that opportunity to talk about genuine and not have to chase after the counterfeit.
Yeah, that makes sense. Apparently our text poll is having a little bit of issues. Sorry, I'm sure we'll try to address it. If you could, go ahead and put up the diagram. Let's go ahead and skip that. Let's just say a lot of you have been deeply impacted by sexual misconduct by someone in your family. Let's just assume that. I wanted to prove it with the text poll, but it's probably pretty true. Just take my word for it. There is a diagram here that Cindy talked about in our workshops, and I thought it was really compelling the way she talked about sexuality. This is kind of your picture, right?
Yeah.
A snapshot of what sexuality is, that you have your biology, you have your beliefs, and you have your behaviors. So you kind of explain to us what that is for you, what that means.
Yeah, sexuality kind of can be summed up in sexual expression, simply what you do or don't do with your sexual self is just a summary of who you be. And people kind of give me a weird look and they go, I don't know what that means, who I be. And so I could break it down into be. Yeah. I could break it down into your biology. Part of your sexuality is just your biology, your level of testosterone or not, your age, your sex drive, that kind of thing, the way your body's been impacted by stress, caffeine, sugar, sleep. It's also your behaviors, and your beliefs. And your beliefs are actually really the big core chunk of sexuality, what you believe or don't believe about a wide variety of topics that you may not even think are sexual topics. And then out of that, those two combined result in your behaviors. And people have pretty set behaviors based on what they believe.
And I mean, a lot of people that I talk to, when they think about sexuality, that they're thinking almost only their behaviors, and
right.
That's what they're kind of fighting at.
Right.
How do you help shift their mindset there?
Well, it's really about changing your whole perspective. Have you guys ever gotten a sandwich out of a vending machine? Ugh. Yeah, yum. Tuna, is the one you pick, or egg salad right now. It's there, it's a meal, it's bologna and cheese, but that seems to be just the sexual act part. Mm-hmm. And people focus on that, and they try and figure out how to fix that or how to make that better or how to add a little spice to that. And they don't realize there's this whole world called the grocery store where you can get your recipes and you can go buy ingredients and you can go put together this amazing buffet. Well, all those ingredients in the grocery store are me and who I am and what I bring, and in my heart and my soul and my art and my spirit and my poetry and my past and my hurts and my wounds and all of these complex things that make up me. That's what I can make and bring to my sexual life and my sexual experience.
Wow. That's good. That's good. I want you to kind of expand on this idea of who you be, because obviously you're kind of talking about I get in my mind the metaphor of this horizon of soil, right? And you got all this stuff growing up out of it, and I feel like most of my life that's what I'm focusing on. That's the stuff I see, and I'm trying to, cut off branches here and prune. But it sounds like to me you're trying to deal with roots, stuff that's underneath.
I am. Imagine with me a real simple picture. If we could go back in a time machine to the Garden of Eden, and Adam and Eve were able to withstand the enemy. They trained their children how to do that. Generation after generation withstood the enemy. And we'd get to us. We'd all be sitting in the Garden of Eden in perfection. and we would see who we be, right?
And we'd be naked.
We would be. We'd be good naked.
Yeah, good naked.
There's good naked and bad naked. You should have been in the workshop. We talked about both of those. But yeah, we'd be good naked. And we'd be there, and you would see us more in our essence, more of who we are rather than what we do. And we'd interact with each other, and we'd connect with, gosh, that person's compassion. We'd connect with that person's humor. We'd connect with that person's poetry. We'd connect with that person's strength. And we'd connect with that so much more than what we do. And that's who we be. But when the fall happened, it's almost as if those pieces of who we be somehow broke, sucked away. I imagine this great sci-fi, sucking off of whatever the thing is, like The Matrix or Doctor Who or something. And we're left with these holes in who we be. And those holes of who we be, we spend our life thinking something that we do will fill them, not knowing that we're supposed to be finding, planting, and that's kind of where our growing and our pruning happens, but it's so much more about who we be.
Sure. So if someone comes to you, which I'm sure happens all the time, with a behavior, something that maybe it's an addiction or it's out of control or a wound or hurt that they can't get over, how do you begin? Like, how do you begin to really talk to them about understanding this be part of us?
Well, first of all, I settle their fears because hopefully they find me a pretty groovy chick, and so they feel real calm talking about their sexuality with me. The next thing I do is I tell them that sex is the easiest thing to solve, so we don't even have to really worry about that part. And say, for example, I've got a young married woman who comes and she says, I really am not interested in sex like I think I should be, and all my girlfriends are talking about it, and everybody's having a good time, and I don't know. It's easy. Let's just set that aside and let's just talk about who you be. Because I always know where you're struggling sexually has something more to do with your person. And are you feeling in there unsafe in your person?
Sure.
And I could ask her, is that a lifelong experience that you've had, feeling maybe unsafe, unprotected, unsure, somehow vulnerable? And I'll usually get yeah. I go, well, see, we're just looking at just one of the fruit of many. It's just showing up in your sexuality. Or I get a guy who's got addictions.
Sure.
And I'll sit and I'll talk with him and I'll go, you know what, if we just left the sex part off of it, tell me what it is that you constantly are struggling with. And I'll hear, I feel like I don't measure up, or everybody knows stuff and I don't know stuff. Or, I wish people would, I wish my wife would appreciate it. I try really hard and yeah, I'm not perfect, but I just wish I was appreciated. And then I'll go, is that something you've noticed a long time, kind of like a low-grade fever, even when you were a kid? And I'll hear, yeah. And I'll go, see, it's just that, and it's just shown up here in this place.
Yeah, that makes sense. Help me understand, too, like, in my upbringing, sex was, a naughty word, right? It was, there was a lot of shame. I don't know if you guys ever kind of sense there's just a lot of shame around that area. I kind of grew up in the generation where you didn't talk about that, right? You didn't say words like masturbation. Yep, I said it, okay? You didn't say things like that out loud in a church service.
I gave him permission.
Yeah. So what do you do with that shame? How do you help people understand sex in a healthy context? I mean, there's some people swing the other direction and say there's nothing wrong and it's just kind of
Let's
free
all
for all.
run naked down the street.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
How do you find that appropriate place?
Well, I think it's really putting it in a bigger context. I mean, it's putting it in a bigger context, from the vending machine sandwich to this big buffet of who I be. I agree with that culturally. My mom was a teenager in the 50s, and you didn't say pregnant like in public. So for me, doing this now as my job is quite harsh and shocking for her. But there's a way in which that cultural generation, they didn't know what to do with that, and they didn't know how to talk about that. And so we ended up with lots of don'ts, and we missed all of its origin, which is its beauty. Now, the other side, let's all run naked down the street, that's about trying to figure out a way to spice up the vending machine sandwich.
Yeah.
And so they've totally missed the whole encompassing buffet of what it is. So the best picture I know is to do exactly what you should do with sex, is thoroughly saturate it and put it in the context of God's love for us.
Yeah.
And if you can put it in that context, there's this, my favorite life scripture is 1 John 4:16. I've known and believed the love that God has for me. And if I can put my sexual self whether it be the sexual part that's feminine, it's just my gender, or the sexual part that's my personhood that wants to feel valued and treasured, or even just my sexual self that's me being intimate with my husband. If I can put all of that in the context of I've known and I have believed how much he loves me, that puts everything else into perspective.
Sure. You touched on something that you spoke in both workshops about. From a kind of a broad perspective, there's distinctions that come with gender that obviously that doesn't include a bunch of stereotypes that are very culturally driven, but
correct.
You believe there's these distinctions that are really at the heart of our sexualities. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think it's really wonderful that God made the effort to not just leave us all one big blob, but he kind of divided us out, male and female.
Sure.
And what I love about that is so artistic and it's so complex, and we can put, those two different spices together and make a wonderful flavor. And he put part of the aspects of who he is in masculine, and he put part of the aspects of who he is in feminine, because we're created in his image.
Absolutely.
And then those two complementary pieces go together. And so if I really am living in the feminine part of who I am, not stereotypical what we think feminine, but a heart's posture of femininity, and I can be next to you and you're masculine in a heart's posture of masculinity, you should be feeling and experiencing and being more man, and I should be feeling and experiencing being more woman because of the complementariness that we have with each other.
And you gave labels of sorts. Like I just remember for the guys, since I was a guy, there's this, you used the word kind of like warrior and gardener, these sorts of metaphors. Can you kind of elaborate?
Some of the aspects that God has given, one of the things he gave in masculine is he gave a leadership quality. He also gave a leadership quality in women. We just have different areas we have leadership and different styles in the way we have leadership over things. So we both, Adam and Eve were co-regents together in the garden.
Sure.
And then he gave man this wonderful kind of spiritual DNA that he's a gardener, and he creates environment. He creates environment for things to grow. He creates an environment by who he is. It's your bee. You create an environment by being aware of who's in your garden, who's kind of in your domain, so that you've got two little girls, and I bet they're very different.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got to be a good gardener and know this one needs more sunshine, this one needs more shade, this one needs this pruning, this one needs this growing, and you learn how to create an amazing environment for things to grow. Now, women have a counterpoint to that. They have life-giving. Now, that's like gardening, except women just take what they have and make more. That's about woman and beauty, right? So you're gardening and you make the tomatoes and you bring them into me and I make salsa, right? I take what I have and I make more. Guys, when girls are late getting ready, that's them being life-giving. They're taking what they have and they're making it more, right? They're making it beautiful. So be glad about that.
Oh, that's what's happening.
Glad about that. They're taking what they have. Well, look how God did it. He took what he had, Adam's rib, and he made more. Eve.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
really cool. I sometimes say, are there any little kids in here? I need to be careful. I sometimes say, if you give a woman sperm, she might even make a baby.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's factually true what she just said.
You didn't expect me to say that. You should have seen his face. He's like, oh, okay, you're going to go there.
I've said worse.
Yeah, and then look how it works together. You're covering your area, and I'm covering my area, so I don't have to take care of your business. You don't have to take care of mine. We help each other. All bases are covered. You've got my back. I've got your back. And then you're gardening, and you're creating this amazing environment, and I'm making it more. Then it allows you to be in this wonderful place, because now you got something worth treasure and value to guard.
Yeah.
And guys have this warrior piece. And guys are just really guys when they're fighting the good fight.
Sure.
Whatever that is. Now, I've got boys who are artistic. And so they aren't out on the gridiron, fighting against the football enemy, but they're fighting against forces of evil through art and film.
Sure.
And that kind of thing. My older son's a film editor. My younger son wants to be an actor. And they're fighting the good fight of warrior through their means of their personality.
I appreciate how you talk about this in the context of a heart posture rather than the stereotypes that we often get confused with when we think of gender. And it's so like, for me, talking about sexuality in this way, it's really a mind shift, because you're talking about all these things that no one would think about when you say sex, but you're broadening this idea of sexuality as way more than intercourse. That our sexuality is how we relate not just only to a spouse, but to the world.
And I love how you said that, because now what you're starting to get, Joel, is the world, that little sandwich, just focusing on intercourse, that's just experience. And I want you to have experience. I want you to have good, fun, delicious, tasty experience. Free and fun for everyone. Let's enjoy. But can we have it encapsulated in purpose? And most people don't think about sex with purpose.
Sure.
They don't think about the purpose of sex. They don't think about sex, and in this big purpose thing. See, with women, their warrior side is to be helping and completing. So I come alongside you in battle. My husband and I love Westerns. And so this is the one I use with him. Honey, you shoot the shotgun and I'll keep loading the shells for you, and hand you another empty one. Because you hand and we'll refill. Then everything's covered. And we have this way women help and complete. And when we put our sexuality in that purpose, we start with the valuable person of who we be. We add this delicious layer and filling of who we are in our gender, and then we actually put ourselves together in a covenant with someone and have sexual experience, frosting on the cupcake, sprinkles,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, and then that is like the whole stinking package. Woo! How long till my flight to go home?
I don't know. Yeah.
Woo!
So, I want to kind of dig into a couple of just practical questions for you guys, but I think it was very important that you guys get sort of the guts of some of the stuff that Cindy was talking with our singles and marrieds and engaged. That sexuality, if you were to go to any good sex therapist, they're not going to start with this obvious place of intercourse. They're going to start with heart issues. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's such a brilliant thing that obviously God wants our hearts, and then when he has them, that affects everything else.
Yeah.
Right? Here's a question. People often ask me
Yes.
about masturbation. Everyone's like, all right, here we go. Now, of course, the Bible does not explicitly, and you can try and argue it, but I would say you're wrong, that the Bible does not explicitly talk about any kind of prescriptive measures of whether masturbation is right or wrong. Would you agree with me?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I was talking to you yesterday about a quote from C.S. Lewis's The Great Divorce, which I quote on a regular basis, I know, but get over it, okay? But there's this point where one of the spirits from heaven is talking to this guy who's come up from hell, and he's like one of those intellectual, he's like a Bible scholar, right, kind of guy. And the spirit's trying to convince him that, he's using intellect as a way to actually push against God. And so he says, you've gone far wrong. Thirst was made for water. Inquiry was made for truth. What you now call the free play of inquiry has neither more or less to do with the ends for which intelligence was given you than masturbation has to do with marriage. I love how C.S. Lewis can just throw masturbation into like a theological book. All right, so basically what he's saying is that there's a disconnect between masturbation and the purpose of marriage. So how would you elaborate on that?
Well, I agree with you. I mean, there's no scripture prohibiting it. There is a list of things that are prohibited. It's pretty short. You can find it if you want to know what those things are. But the Bible really is very clear about sexuality having to do with your heart more than anything else. What's your heart's posture?
Sure.
Why are you even doing this? What are you thinking about? What's your purpose? So with masturbation, the thing I find most of the time is it's fairly insufficient. Most of guys that I have to come to see me who are struggling with pornography and masturbation, remember we talked about it's a being. It's something else they're trying to feel and feel. They're bored, they're troubled, they feel insignificant, they're looking for a thrill, whatever it might be. And masturbation is a very insufficient way to fill that, because you walk away with an enemy who's going to attack you about that. Instead of being able to say, man, I feel significant and fulfilled through another means. It's a legitimate hunger, wanting to feel significant. It's just feed it through a legitimate means. With my boys, we talk about that, and one's 23, one's 16 now. And when we were always having some sort of gender or some kind of sex talk. And when we got to the masturbation part, which is so comfortable to talk to your mom about that, especially like in the middle of the food court at the mall. It's usually a good place to do that. And to be able to talk about and say to them, baby, I know you're a teenager. I know the wind's going to blow and you're going to have an erection and it's got to go someplace. I understand that. I want you to be...
You said the other day, you were in the bathroom with the locked door for a while there.
Yeah, I did. What are you doing in there? You're using all the hot water in the shower. Okay. I'm a cool and groovy mom. So they don't think so. They think
Sure.
Yeah, I don't have cool points with them.
It's a no-win situation.
You're right. But to be able to say, what are you thinking about? What's this, what's going on with you? I'll never forget, I was sitting in a church service with my son, and he started crying. And he was really undone. And I was trying to figure out what was wrong with him. And so I put my arm around him. I said, honey, are you okay? Honey, are you okay? He goes, Mom, I think I'm going to go to hell. Jesus can't love me anymore. And I said, why? And he said, because I saw some stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
And my heart was just broken. And my husband's like, what's going on down there? What's going on down there? And I'm like, sex talk, sex talk. So we get up, we go out in the back, and we had this wonderful conversation in the lobby of our church about masturbation. And that, what's in your heart? And how it pierces your heart if you're not careful. So to be really aware of this whole connection, because it's so easy for men and women to disconnect your sexuality from all of who you are and leave it in a little box and never let it come and influence or be a part of the feminine me, the valuable me, the masculine you, the valuable you, the warrior you, the hero me. We never let it be a part. And masturbation is a way, that discomfort that we're not quite full and whole, masturbation's an easy little sleeping pill to give that thing, to just get it to go away. Now, I know sometimes you're going to do it. Sometimes there's a reason that you'd need to. You're gone for a long time. My husband travels on a trip, or somebody's sick, or maybe, I really don't feel like doing this with you right now, sweetie, but maybe I'll do that with you right now. There's no prohibition against it. It's just be really aware what you're using it for.
I think that's a really wise way to talk about it. I wonder if you could also just, what would you say to some of our marrieds and engaged right now? You had made a comment to me the other day about some studies out about how busy our culture is and how that's having a direct impact on sexual intimacy.
Yeah. I asked the guys who were in the marriage group yesterday if they'd do me a favor and stop doing social media. I know that's not going to happen, but I'm seeing a wealth of clients coming in that are your guys' age that don't know how to do intimacy. They don't know how to sit and do eye to eye, heart to heart, just chat. I've got a couple right now that they don't fight face to face, they text their fights. And I'm like, the thing about that is when you are arguing with the person you love and you can see in their eyes and you see that they're mad at you and they hate your guts. But when you get it resolved and you see that they love you and that balm comes on your soul, that's an important part of the process.
Absolutely.
And I can't see that if I'm just texting you, I hate your guts, fat stupid head. And there's a way in which our busyness, our activities, our social lives, our social media, and we're not connecting. There was an article in Newsweek that said, "Not tonight, please, we're married." And it was about couples who get so involved in all their kids' sports programs, and they satisfy that taste of intimacy through their little social media, and they've got couples that are having sex 10 times or less a year. And they're starting to become a sexless generation. And, I know.
Wah, wah, wah.
I know. I will always have a
sexless
job.
generation. Yeah.
I know.
Well, I was just telling you about the other day, I saw this very disturbing article about some things happening in the culture of Japan.
Yes.
What they call Japan love, and how there's this real skepticism about relationships. I'm sure it has a lot to do with the generation that's very honor shame based,
Right.
and but how people are just disconnecting from real relationships and looking for very kind of plastic, literally plastic relationships with dolls, with that. Women will go to these kind of bars set up where the people who are the bartenders there, it is their job to just create a 30-minute connection with this woman, make her feel something, right? And that's what they're replacing real relationships with. They have places where you can go pay money to cuddle with someone.
Yes, cuddle bars.
Cuddle bars. Oh, weird. I'm a quarter Japanese, and that just hurts my heart, right?
Yeah, I read an article about a guy who has 2 dolls. One's his wife and one's his mistress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not weird. So, can you describe for me, too, just kind of piggyback on something you said that was just really convicting for me, how you see a lot of times in relationships, whether it's a husband or wife, or I guess even people who are engaged or even dating, just they're sensitive to something that they want in that relationship.
Right.
But you read that and you kind of flip it on its head.
I do. If you guys ever come to a marriage conference, I do, just be aware I'm going to trick you at the very beginning, okay? So you're on the inside, in track. Because what I'll do is I'll say, marriages are hard and relationships are hard and you're longing for stuff. And think about the arguments that you have and how you're longing. I wish I felt more loved. I wish you'd respect me. I wish you'd appreciate me. Why can't you make me, feel these things? And then I'll have everybody in the crowd, get out your little notebook and write what you want in relationship. And boy, everybody does. So I'll have it. Now remember, it's a trick, right? So then I'll have them read, what do you want? And some brave soul will be, well, I want to feel loved. And I'll be like, okay. And what do you want? Some other brave soul will go, I want to feel respected. And I'll go, oh. And so then I start to make kind of a funky face. And everybody goes, uh-oh, it's a trick. And then I'll say, did anybody write in their notebook, I am so full. I am this orchard. I'm like zucchini at the end of summer. I got to put it in a paper sack and put it on somebody's porch. I am so full of appreciation. I long to have a relationship where I can appreciate somebody. I long to have a relationship where I can value, treasure, protect, love, respect somebody. And everybody just looks at me like, we're not going to listen to you for the rest of the week. But the thing is that I believe relationship was designed, if you go back in the Garden of Eden, relationship is about the fullness. It's about the overflow. It's about all of who I be, and I got to have a place to put it. I mean, if I see me in Eden, I am amazing. I am full. I'm overflowing. I would just bust if I didn't have a place to put that. And to my husband, Steve, you lucky fellow, you're the one who gets all of who I am. But what happened is, with the break, with the holes, we're real sensitive to that now. And we think it's because somebody's supposed to give it to us, and we didn't realize we were supposed to be bringing it. And we go through the picnic going, where's the pie? Where's the pie? We need pie. You were the one that was supposed to be bringing pie. Of course you're sensitive to it because you're the pie bringer. You were the one that was supposed to bring it. Of course you're hungry for it. So of course I was hungry to be loved because actually that's what I'm supposed to bring. Of course, Steve was supposed to, he was starving for appreciation because that's what he was supposed to bring. And when we figured that out and we started being able to plant that and grow that, then in ourselves, then that's what you bring. And then that stops all this conflict and crap that happens in relationships. James 4:1 says, what causes these quarrels between you? Is it not these lusts, these desires, these things that are waging war within you? Yeah, it is. And why is it waging war in there? You need to have it and you don't have it.
Yeah.
You're just looking at the wrong place to get it.
Yeah. And we turn to the first sin of blame, right?
Yes,
and we start
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. Oh, do you feel as convicted as me? Is it just me? Okay.
It's just you. Everybody else already knew this, Joel. This was just for you.
Can you give, what word of advice would you give to our singles? How can they honor their sexualities in today's world?
Well, first of all, figure out what you're going to do to make your sexuality a treasure to you. There's something kind of in our religious culture that makes sexuality so bad. Mm-hmm. And if you're just thinking about it like the little vending machine sandwich, okay, don't run down the street naked. But if you see it encapsulated, your sexuality in your personhood, and you see it encapsulated in the wonderful, unique expression of gender and how you show up, we're looking at this treasure that you are holding and guarding and valuing. It's the full thing you're bringing to the picnic that you can be able to say, you lucky person who decided to enter into this covenant of this level with me, you get the grand prize.
Sure.
Rather than something I'm ashamed of or I'm afraid of. Now, you got this biology piece, and so guys are going to be waking up with lots of testosterone every day looking for a place to go. Girls have got their own feelings that are going down below the equator, and so we have this thing that goes on within us that we got to deal with our biology.
Yeah.
And if you can put it in context of the valuable of who you are, that helps you be able to withstand. I remember reading an article that someone had said it seemed like we Christian women were supposed to be like not dealing with these feelings. We weren't supposed to be having these feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really more about putting those feelings in their right context. Song of Solomon says 5 times, don't wake up love before it's time. Don't wake up love before it's time, because our bodies are made to respond to our hearts, which are made to respond in this environment. And it's supposed to work and work well and work quick and delicious.
Sure.
Just, don't get in that well-tuned Italian race car too soon.
Counseling, Rachel and I will be counseling a couple that are not in any kind of committed relationship other than they're just maybe thinking about it down the line, and they're interacting in ways that are awakening
Yes.
all the chemicals
Yes.
and all those things that God made. I was just like, you realize all that stuff you're doing
Yeah.
is foreplay. It's
Exactly.
your body doesn't know you're not going there, right? You know? And so it's just like,
Exactly.
don't underestimate biology.
Yeah, don't underestimate biology. And here's the thing for your heart. When it comes the day you really are with your true heart's beloved, I would hate it that you know, your sexual self and your heart is like duct tape, and you stick it on and pull it off and stick it on and pull it off and stick it on and pull it off. Eventually that duct tape's got like hair and dead skin cells and fuzz and lint.
gross.
Yeah, and it doesn't stick the same. And you have all that crap. You know, there's something to be said for being in a place where it feels so good to be me.
Yeah.
And I don't have any worries about sharing that with you.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to end with just a kind of a story. One of the most powerful moments for me just in my life was one of the sessions that I had with my friend and Cindy. And she started me down this path of, at the time, I was really struggling with pornography. Since I was a kid, I've always kind of had that, it's a long story of how that started, but I've kind of struggled with that. And so I was responding to it in a very typical kind of evangelical way of guilting myself, trying to beat myself up for Jesus, right? And trying to muscle myself out of that, you know, as if I had enough strength to overcome my own brokenness. And I quickly found I did not. And so she kind of walked me down this path. I wonder if you can kind of reenact what helped me connect my head with my heart, which I often struggle with, as well as just learning how to love myself.
Sure. Will you cry for everybody just like you did?
I don't know. It may happen. I don't want to promise you anything, okay?
Well, yeah, I'd love to do it. And if you know what, you guys, there's no magic in this. It's really more about just connecting with your heart. If you want to do it, do it. You know, just gently, you know, kind of close your eyes or just kind of go into a little private place inside your heart and see where you go with these questions. What I had asked Joel is I had said to him, can you think of yourself as a kid? Can you picture it? Think of some time, a school picture, a photo. Just kind of grab a hold of yourself as a kid in a certain place. Got that?
I had in my mind, I can still remember it. It was a third grade picture, school picture, right? And I had this weird swoop on my hair, right? Yeah.
Really? Yeah. And yeah, as you see this kid, what do you feel when you see him?
And I think I told you, the only thing I can remember, I said, I think I probably talked a while, but I just remember thinking how intensely curious he was.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing that his mind wouldn't, just like his imagination wouldn't explode about. Just he wanted to know everything and anything.
And as you look at him and you see him so curious and so innocent, where's your heart go?
I remember in the moment I almost felt like this weird, like I felt affection for him. Like, man, I love that kid. Like he's very energetic. He has wonder in his eyes. Yeah. There's an innocence about him that I found really beautiful.
Yeah. And he's you, and you make him sit with you while you sit at the computer. Is that what you want him to do? Is that what you want him to see? Is that where you want him to be?
Not. Like, I remember what I felt was, like this sentry that just came up within me that I wanted to protect him.
Yeah.
Because I knew it was around the corner for him. I knew there were things that were totally not his fault that happened to him.
Right.
I knew there were things in exposure that I would want to help explain, sit him down and say, this is what this means.
Yeah.
Don't go down this path because that path is really hard.
Yeah.
And I remember the moment you're talking to me and you're asking me these questions, and I realized this feeling I felt for him, this love, this drawing to, this desire to protect him,
right,
was me. And it was like I probably just crumpled into a ball of slobbering mess.
Because see, the thing is, your heart doesn't know the difference between time. There's no time in the heart. And where you were as a kid, it's not like you trade your heart in on your 4th birthday for a new one on your 5th birthday. Your heart doesn't know time. So, you know, I'm 51 years old, And I can still remember how it felt the day I came home with my school picture. My hair was messy, and my mom was so mad that my hair was messy, and we'd spent $5 on those school pictures. And I remember feeling so ugly, so unloved. And if I touch that place in my heart, it feels so tender, and I want to hug her, and I want to tell her, you know, Mom didn't mean it. I love you. I'll protect you. Well, that's me. That's my 51-year-old me. And where have I taken her to help her feel loved? I've took her some places she shouldn't have been. What have I done to her to help her feel loved? I've made her do stuff she didn't want to do. Am I willing today to be her hero? Will you be his hero? Will you let him, will I let me be my person and be my value and be me and let that shine and not harm her through sexuality, but let her shine in her beauty through her sexual expression? Can I take her in this beautiful place that I have with my husband of 28 years and let her feel how beautiful she is in his arms?
Yeah.
That's a treasure. And everybody here can do the same thing if they're willing to understand that those hurts and those pains, they're not problems to be fixed. They're wounds to be healed.
Yeah.
And healing comes through love and care and tender application. And sometimes I don't know how to do it, and I just have to lay there like a gutted fish before Jesus and go, I don't know how to do it. I have to know and believe the love. Can you just love me?
Yeah.
And fill that in one layer at a time. And Joel, I've walked with, at this point, thousands of people. And most of them are willing to do it. And it makes my job so rewarding. But some of them aren't. I had a guy, I took him back in the time machine, and he hated that little boy. I said, he's crying, he wants to go with you. Take him with you. And he said, no, I'd punch him in the face. I won't let him in the time machine. I won't let him come back. And what broke my heart is I love that kid more than he loved that kid. And sadly, I mean, how horrible is that? You have to pay somebody to love you more than you love you. So my encouragement, and the reason why I do what I do, is not the letters behind my name. It's not the salary that I make. It's my calling.
Sure.
Because people go, how is sex therapist being anything eternal? It's not an evangelist. It's not a pastor. But I know that your sexual being affects you here in this life. It affects all of your relationships, and those things have an effect on your eternity. And I so long for this to have a whole generation of sexually connected, sexually whole representatives of Christ on the earth.
It's beautiful, eh? Yeah. I wonder if you could just pray for us.
I'd be honored to.
If you guys would you stand? And bow your heads. I'm just going to ask Cindy just to say a prayer of blessing and ask the Lord just to kind of invade your sexualities.
Well, Father, I just come before you, Lord, in this beautiful place, life of Deep Ellum. Father, I see it in my heart like a place that's shooting a beam of light up out of the darkness. And when I look at that beam, it's not one. Father, it's the light shining out of every heart in this community. But Lord, I know as well as I know my own heart that every heart isn't perfect and every heart isn't pure. Every heart has broken and wounded places that could be healed, Lord, if we simply knew and believed the love you have for us. Lord, I'm asking in a special way if you would just find those places personally in each heart and gently apply the medicine of your love. Father, I know that you've said in your word, if we ask according to your will, you hear us, and we have whatsoever we've asked. And I know that it's your will for these hearts to feel your love, to be whole, to be complete, and to shine in their personhood, to shine in their gender, and to shine in their sexuality. Lord, I just am asking for your love, your miracle-working salve, Father, to touch each heart, draw it to you in a unique way. And Father, I would ask over the next few days, weeks, months, years, that you would help all of us to turn our eyes towards sexuality in the way it's supposed to be. this amazing treasure. Father, you've said in your word that sex between husband and a wife is the grand metaphor. It's the huge picture. It's a crazy, mysterious picture of how much you love us. Lord, help us to start seeing sexuality in those terms and invading our personhood. Father, bless this place. Bless Joel, bless Rachel, bless their staff, bless everyone who's here on their path. Father, let it shine. I ask this in the mighty, glorious name of love, Jesus. Amen.
Give it up for Cindy. So I'll just close with the benediction of Jude. So now to him who is able to keep you from falling, to present you before his glorious presence without fault and with great joy. To the only God, our Savior, be glory, power, majesty, and authority through Jesus Christ our Lord, now and forevermore. And we all say, amen. Blessings, guys. Have a great, sexy week.